Welcome in, everybody, to the Bare Knuckle Recovery podcast. This is episode 35. As always, Tommy Streeter, Nate Moellering. We've got two guests with us today. Most of you guys already know Zach Dawson. Zach is a part of the BKR team, also works in outreach for Allendale Treatment and Fort Wayne Recovery. And then Jared White, you've seen him on here a few times. Jared is the founder of FW22, and I'll let you give a little refresher on what that is because that plays directly into our topic today. So we're going to date ourselves a little bit with this episode. We're recording in June. I know it's not going to be published in June, but with June being Men's Mental Health Awareness Month and PTSD Awareness Month, that's what we are going to be talking about today. So Jared, I'm going to let you start first. You can talk a little bit about FW22 if you would like to, and let's start out talking about PTSD Awareness Month, why that's important, and let's just see where this conversation goes.
Yeah, so I appreciate you guys for having me on. It's always a pleasure and an honor. It does feel weird sitting in this chair today, but that's the perks of being a guest on your podcast. Jared White, FW22, going on 11 years, specialize in veteran suicide, mental health, PTSD, and traumatic brain injury. And since I came back, I call it my comeback tour. We are now launching a MST team for military sexual trauma. And we have also been state mandated to train active duty bases with Remedy Alive on just how we do our training. Mental health's rising like crazy. You know, one of the boards that I sit on here for Allen County is a suicide awareness board. And not only are we double in suicides this time right now from last year, but 28% of those were veterans. So the mental health rate is just skyrocketing. It's always predominantly males. And yeah, it's been a wild ride. Obviously, we work mostly with males over females, just because statistically more men are in the military than women. But that's literally one of the reasons why I love that we're partnered with you guys so much is, you know, and I'll just speak from personal, but the three of you here are part of my very small circle. We're usually texting at night, talking. Nate's usually sending a ridiculous amount of Bible verses to us. But, you know, not everybody has that small circle, and it's cool for me because I can be vulnerable. I can let you guys know if I'm struggling or what's bothering me. Most people don't get that. They have to be an alpha at all times, and they have to be the leader at all times. They have to be the husband, the CEO, but internally they're struggling. And so, you know, when you don't have an outlet to just be vulnerable with, it really eats you up inside. And then, yeah, it's PTSD Awareness Month, which is one of my favorite topics. You know, I was just joking with Tommy earlier that I get a disability every month for it. And I even literally yesterday, I was talking to a vet about it, and he was even asking, like, why do I have PTSD? And this is just my opinion. I'm not a doctor, but I don't think, you know, and this could be for civilians too, but I truly believe with PTSD, it's not about things that we did. Mm-hmm. It's about things that someone tried to do to us. Mm-hmm. So I've done crazy things overseas. I don't think that causes my PTSD, maybe guilt. Mm-hmm. I think what causes it is, you know, another person within close proximity trying to kill you. Yeah. That people don't think about that. They're always like, I have PTSD from what I did, but it's really what someone tried to do to you. Mm-hmm. And I think that plays in a huge factor. So let's take out the war itself and just talk statistically. Anytime you've ever had your life threatened or in danger or saw a trauma, you know, whether it's, you know, molesting, child abuse, watching your dad drunk, beating your mom as a kid, that's, you know, that plays a huge trauma effect. But I think the saying is not all wounds are visible, and that's what PTSD is. It's a mental scar. It affects the brain, it affects the heart, and it affects our motor skills. So it's very awesome that we're highlighting that and that we're talking about it. And I couldn't think of a better group besides FW22 other than BKR to talk about this, because you guys are in the fight, you're in the trenches, you're going through doors, you're meeting people at their lowest points in life, and you're letting them know it's okay. Mm-hmm. And that's huge. You know, a lot of places when you call for help, it's like, well, your insurance doesn't meet ours. Have a good day. That's a very defeating situation. But you guys, regardless of their insurance, will work with them and not leave them alone. That's huge for mental health, huge for PTSD, and huge for men's mental health.
So two of the things that you said, I think everybody could probably guess why typically suicides are, it's a male that's committing suicide. I think it's probably because women are a lot more willing to tell people that they're struggling and open up and talk about what's going on.
Yeah.
So I think that one makes sense. But you also said that right now, compared to last year, the suicide rate is about doubled.
Yep.
What are some of the reasons that we think that may be?
Again, I'll just stick with my opinion. I'm not a doctor. I honestly think it's social media is I'm a firm believer on it. It's cool to be depressed on social media, but it's cool instead of getting help to shoot a video about it, right? And see how many people liked that you're depressed. Yeah. And then when you don't get the likes, then you're even more depressed, but you did nothing to actually get help. Yeah. It was all surface level reactions. I think, the suicide rate that's highest is the 18 to 24 and then the older, but that makes sense as you're 65 plus, you're lonely, right?
Sure.
These kids, they're not lonely. They don't know how to handle adversity. The second they fail at something or they get fired, like it's the end of the world. Mm-hmm. You have to allow those emotions to happen, but we don't talk about it. We text about it or we TikTok it. And that's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but even when we train these active duty bases, I call them kids, but they're 18 to 24. The reason why we partnered with Remedy Life for that is because they're really big on social media and text are active. That's how these kids learn. They don't want to listen to us speak and literally teach them. They want us to text them stuff. And I think social media is cool in some ways, maybe for marketing, but if you're struggling with mental health, this shouldn't be something for clicks. You need to go get treatment. You need to go meet with a doctor. You need to really invest in yourself and take care of yourself. But if all you're doing is taking your depressive episode to social media and then not getting the likes or responses that you're getting, they feel alone. They're worthless. No one cares. And that's just wild stuff to me.
Something I would like to add to that is, from my perspective, what I'm seeing is people are relying on one person, whether that's a therapist or their doctor or, whoever that is. And sometimes we can't always just have that person at our will at all times. So we need to start relying on more people. If you're going to see a doctor and they put you on depression medication, yes, making sure that you're taking that depression medication, but that's not going to solve all of your depression because you still have those thoughts and, triggers from PTSD that can bring you back to a place. And you have to really focus on, everybody's part in or their role in your life on what the next step is, whether it's your wife or husband or family, your doctor, your therapist, a treatment facility, whatever that case is. Like it takes a lot to continue with your health.
Well, what you're talking about is community,
correct?
Right? The opposite of addiction is human connection. The opposite of depression, anxiety is also human connection. So what we've done through social media, and you can see they've done studies on this, and there was a direct, spike in mental health problems about 2013. And that's because that's when the iPhone became accessible to the average person. And once the iPhone became accessible, you saw people start to move away from flip phones. You can't really get on social media on a flip phone. And as you've gone through 2013 all the way to now 2025, the mental health has gotten worse, specifically for young girls. That's one of the struggles that we see, and older men. Young men didn't have a direct spike in 2013 because when you're in the adolescent phase as young men, most of them are getting what they need from technology in the sense that they're doing things like playing lots of video games, watching porn. So their dopamine spikes are high, but they're not forming connections. They may be forming connections in the virtual world, but they're not forming them in real life. And that's ultimately what we see sustains people. We have seen an increase in what we would call artificial connectivity, which ultimately does not lead to that real feeling of having a relationship with a human being when you do it through a screen. So when people go through things in life, you're right, they can post it on social media. You get some care reacts, you get some sad faces, people might shoot you a couple messages. But at the end of the day, 80% of communication is nonverbal, right? So you don't get that nonverbal communication via social media. You just don't. And so that's one of the reasons I think mental health is continuing to get worse and worse. We're becoming more and more disengaged from the people that live in close proximity to us. I mean, how many people today know their neighbors like they used to? I mean, your neighborhood used to be a place where you spent a lot of time and you knew the people who lived around you very well. And oftentimes the communities in which you lived was where your family also lived. People who went there also went to the same church as you. I mean, the connections were so deep and multifaceted that when you had a problem, you could truly rely on a community. Today, we just don't have that, right? A lot of people want to stay in their homes. They want to stay behind their screens. And so then when you really reach out, there's nothing there. It's artificial, just like all of the artificial intelligence and the artificial connections that we have. So, I mean, I think it's no surprise. It doesn't, I think, Jared, you're spot on. And the other thing too, what you talked about with PTSD, why are we using things like social media to deal with something that happened in the real world to us? I mean, so you had a real world experience that imprinted on your brain. It kicked in fight or flight. In our body, what it does is it remembers those things and it etches it into the survival part of our brain, which is what happens when we're scared. And the problem that we, I think, have started to uncover is that the brain, the human brain, perceives social threats the same way that it does physical threats. That's why you see people who are continuously bullied become depressed and take their life, because they feel like their life is already being threatened and things are being taken from them. We are created to be social beings, right? That's why when you put someone in solitary confinement, it causes severe PTSD. They lose their ability to function in normal society. They become highly institutionalized, even beyond what they do when they're in general pop, right? So I think that is really, we're kind of putting ourselves in solitary confinement voluntarily, and there's no outlet for that. But the problem is those social threats, you may be safe from physical threats. We've done a pretty good job in our world today, especially in America, of neutralizing physical threats. Now we're seeing that begin to shift back the other way because I believe society overall is beginning to degrade rapidly, but that's a story for another day and a topic for another day. But, the social threats are there. And I think that's why, men do complete suicide at much higher rates than women, but women attempt far more. It's just that typically women do things like they take a handful of pills. They're not as physical when it comes to those things, whereas men typically choose things like putting a gun in their mouth and pulling the trigger, right? So it's hard to not have that complete when you do it that way. So we are seeing still super high rates of women who attempt, but men, absolutely right, are completing way more often than women. And so the bodies are piling up, literally, of men in our community, men that are leaving huge holes, men that we would want to get back integrated into our society out of their self-induced solitary confinement because of their PTSD or whatever it is. And now we don't have that option. Right. And so the families don't have their fathers. They don't have sisters, don't have their brothers. Mothers don't have their sons. Grandchildren don't have their grandfathers. And those are roles that are, frankly, irreplaceable. And that's why we all take so seriously what we do, is because we know that the most valuable resource in the world is human beings. And that's something I think we begin as a society to kind of step away from and look at as like, what is this person going to do for me?
Well, I'm really big too on being proactive with your mental health. I kind of like how Tommy bullied me to get me to do something about my physical health, right?
Well, I want to say though that's the thing is, like, Tommy didn't mean it that way, but that's what I think part of the problem too is our perception is that he bullied you.
I love it.
I think that it's because he actually cares about you as a human being.
No, I agree.
Saying that, because how much did you weigh when he said that?
I was 267.
And what are you now?
226, 227,
and do you
depending
feel
on the
better?
day. I feel great.
You look a lot better.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not dropping weight like I was, but even my nutritionist, I told him, bro, summertime is hectic. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I haven't gained a pound though in over 2 months. No, I don't think he actually bullied me. I think weak people would find it that way.
Yeah.
It motivated me. Because the thing is less talking, more action. And so I do it. And when I preach mental health to vets, they don't usually like it because they just want a pill. Yeah. Right. Most vets, and I will say this is always a interesting topic, but like 4th of July, I hate fireworks. I hate them with a passion. It's not the firework that I hate. It's not knowing when it's going to go off that I hate. Right. I get so annoyed when vets put those signs in the yard. It's like combat vet, and it's like, bro, listen, first off, probably weren't even drafted. So you voluntarily joined and served, but you've done nothing about your PTSD with fireworks. You just want to put a sign up and then go in your basement and get drunk all night. If you're struggling with mental health, not being active and drinking isn't good for your mental health.
Right.
I think or thought I was a good person on what I do in the community, it's hard work.
Yeah.
By me eating fried food and drinking bourbon every night and not exercising and just playing video games and watching sports, over time, that was hurting me physically on top of my mental health. So I'm really big on being proactive. If you have PTSD and let's say fireworks is a trigger, well, what are you doing to implement that? Do you see a therapist? Do you journal? Do you meditate? Do you work out? Are you going to go to bed early? Or do you just want to complain about it on social media next to your bourbon and your cigar and your Domino's pizza and then wonder why your night was miserable and why you feel like crap in the morning? So I'm really big. It's just my cutthroat approach, my tough love. Mental health is absolutely 100% okay to have. I think everybody has something mentally they're going through. What's not okay is to do nothing about it other than talk about it on a keyboard.
Right.
Go out in the community, find your circle of people that will fight with you and motivate you and push you. I think mentally we'd be in a lot better place because mental health has always been a thing, but we've always managed it. I don't know why as a society with today's social media and day and age where we're more alone than ever before. That just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, we keep talking about mental health. Can we like distinguish what mental health is? Because everybody, I've talked to a lot of people and they think, because you have a mental illness, you're absolutely crazy, you're out of your mind, everybody should know it. Like that's not how it always is, with the depression, anxiety, again, PTSD, I think we should distinguish those things so somebody doesn't think that we're just talking about a mentally ill person that may have to have a carrier or somebody that's with them at all times.
Yeah.
Mental health is it's different for everyone and it looks different for everyone. That's why, you see the commercials that have the signs that say like, well, you never saw the signs, or you may have seen the signs and it's still this, but I think distinguishing it would be really helpful for everyone. So, there is borderline personality disorder, again, generalized anxiety, depression. Those are what we're all seeing the most out in the communities that people are suffering with. But did you have anything else that you wanted to add with those?
No, I agree completely. I think mental health can be a superpower in some ways. Now, if you're schizophrenic or you have BPD, then you're going to need further help. But like the FBI, for instance, they prefer candidates that have ADHD because you're more susceptible to be paranoid, sitting, at the corner of the room. So they want people like that because you're going to get less complacent. You're always on edge. Sometimes people like, I struggle mentally. I have ADHD and I can't find, and that's an excuse because one of our country's greatest defense mechanism chooses just that. I have mental health issues. I get disability for PTSD, TBI, extreme anger, which is hilarious because I'm like the nicest, calmest, for the most part, person ever. But I don't use it as a crutch. I use that as, let me take my experiences that hurt me and let me use that to motivate me to push through anything else in life. Fortunately, I don't have, BPD or schizophrenia or I'm not depressed. Luckily. So yeah, sometimes people do need further help, but for the most part, when I talk about mental health, it's just, your general, like my stuff. People use it as a crutch to be a victim in life. And I don't like that because if you look at the statistics, there's hundreds and hundreds of thousands that also have what you have. It'd be interesting to see how many just sit in a basement and do nothing or how many are a CEO of a company leading warriors. So mental health is okay, but I hate that we use it as a crutch to why I can't perform, why I drink, why I use, those are all excuses. It's just really fueling your body with poison.
Well, it's quite the spectrum, which is what Zach was alluding to, that you have people who you would see downtown who may be talking to themselves, yelling at cars, walking in circles. And then you have the person who on the surface appears to be completely and totally fine. A good example would be like Robin Williams, right? The actor who famously took his life because of depression and alcoholism and things along those lines. But, it is hard to know. It's hard to pinpoint mental health and it can look so different for everybody. There are those things that are diagnosable like PTSD, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder. And I think it's hard. I think in the United States, we've gotten a little diagnosis happy. One of the most commonly misdiagnosed disorders for people with substance use issues is bipolar disorder. Well, if you're smoking crack, you're going to come across a little bipolar, because one minute you're yacked out of your mind, you're happy, you're having a great time, then you're coming down because you're crashing off your high, and you're pretty pissed off, and you're picking up pieces of drywall off the floor trying to smoke them, swearing they're crack, right? Or holding up a gas station.
Wild times.
Yeah, wild times, you know? So that would look like somebody potentially that has maybe bipolar or borderline personality disorder, when it's really difficult, because they say oftentimes you really shouldn't diagnose somebody with a mental health disorder until they have been sober for at least 1 calendar year, right? And so what we do see often, and it's hard, it's like, is it the chicken or the egg?
Right.
You have people that come into our program that get sober, that get off drugs and alcohol. And that's why through Allendale Treatment, which is our substance use residential program, we created Allendale Behavioral Health, because we were seeing people come in, they would get sober off drugs and alcohol. And, 6-9 months in, they're like, man, I still want to kill myself. It's because they had an underlying mental health disorder, or their brain was just really struggling to heal from their continued alcohol or drug abuse. So it's really hard to know. It's hard to see. It's hard to diagnose. And that's why I think people often wonder why the treatment field for mental health and substance use has such a high rate of recidivism when looking at people returning to programs, even after they've graduated or left against medical advice or clinical advice. But also, even the people that have completed, why do they have such a high fail rate? And it's because it's extremely complex, and it's extremely hard to pinpoint and diagnose, and it's extremely hard to treat, because the other thing people don't realize is, in order to treat something, the patient has to be compliant with the treatment. Just like anything, if you get your shot in the leg, and they're trying to put a tourniquet on you, and you're like, I don't want the tourniquet, I'll just take care of it myself when I get home.
Yeah, end up looking like Lieutenant Dan.
Ain't nothing they can do for you unless they hold you down and tie the tourniquet on, right? And they probably will at that point, but
tourniquets hurt, by the way.
I'm sure they do. Yeah, I can't imagine.
I've never, but I've seen grown men screaming.
Yeah.
And you're just twisting and twisting. I want to say something funny. Well, I think it's funny because that's how I handle trauma.
Okay.
When you're talking about the crack in the cardboard, we had the sergeant, I won't say his name, but this dude, so I didn't know what really meth was in the Marine Corps, right? Because that's not what you do in the Marines.
Sure.
And our sergeant, literally at 4 a.m. was just, like this dude was just hyper, go. Like, and then like halfway through the day, his pupils would be huge, and he's just like foaming out the mouth. And we never thought anything of it. They'd just be like, oh, he's a crazy Iraq vet. And so we're like, I guess, because at 4 a.m. he's destroying our bodies, right? Making us PT. And one day we took our shirts off, and he had these giant pepperonis all over his body. These scabs. We had no idea what it was.
Picking at him.
Turns out he'd been doing meth. That's why he was so fired up. And he was getting away with it because he's in charge of our urinalysis screenings. But everybody else just thought this dude was crazy, because from like 0-400 to 1300, this guy is just go. And then the rest of the day is like a zombie crashed, hadn't slept in days. And we're like, dude, what is going on?
I mean, we're laughing. We know it's not funny, but like the only reason we're laughing is because we deal with this stuff every single day. And if you don't laugh, you're going to cry and break down and get burnt out and quit. And that's not an option for us.
Yeah, so. It was wild. But again, with him, he didn't want to get help. He just went through all the motions. To all the people that were trying to help him, he would tell them what they'd want to hear, and then the second he was done with getting help, he went right back to it. So mentally, he never really planned on getting sober.
And that's because in his mind, it's working for him. He's saying, what the hell is your problem? I'm up at 4 a.m. getting these Marines ready to go.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Again, why quit when you're making a great paycheck? Yeah. Plus, he's getting disability while he's in from his Iraq wars. He's married, has a family. He has no reason to quit. Life is great. Yeah. In his mind, he probably thinks this meth is helping him further train the Marines.
That's what we all thought. We all
Absolutely.
used to.
I thought he was the better father, worker, all of that.
You were shooting heroin, right? Yeah.
I thought he was skinny because he was always bragging about this dang keto diet, but now I know he just wasn't eating.
It was the metho diet.
Yeah, wild times. I was naive.
Meth
I had no idea.
Keto, technically, there's not many carbs in it. So,
dude, this dude. But those pepperonis, I was like, "What is wrong with your body?" Yeah. Look, he was doing those suction cup things.
Oh yeah, cupping.
That wasn't even a thing though back then.
That's what he was doing.
That didn't even exist then. That was like 2010. Yeah, he invented it.
Yeah,
it's wild stuff.
Body, you don't know. But no, I mean that's a real life example though of people you don't know that think they have their crap together. I mean, we see it all the time. How many people come through our program and they're actually somewhat excelling in their career, and it's tough, but ultimately it's going to kill you.
Yeah.
It's going to kill you, and it's going to ruin your relationships. And, you know, I know we beat this crap to death, but, you know, we don't measure addiction in grams, snorted, smoked, injected, bottle strength. It's measured in continued use despite negative consequences and broken relationships. And I can guarantee you, even though that guy was married and had a career, his home life was probably a train wreck. You know, and people will tell you that, we get people all the time come in and say, oh, my wife doesn't know, or my kids don't know. And it's like,
Yeah, they do.
They definitely do.
They know.
Well, and the addiction and the mental health goes hand in hand. I mean, again,
Yes.
it's the chicken or the egg. But typically, when somebody comes into treatment, you know, we start with the substance abuse, we get them off of the substances, and then we're focusing on the mental health. If you just take one away, which is the substance abuse, that mental health is still going to be there. And that's when, you know, that's
It's going to get
why,
worse too if you don't address it.
and that's why we're seeing a recidivism rate as we are in our, you know, nationally, is because people think like, oh, I'm just going to stop doing drugs. And if they're not willing to work on their mental health, such as the depression, anxiety, PTSD, that's a huge one. Then that's where they just sit there and they fester, and then they start isolating, and that isolation brings them back to right where they were. And then that's where the crazy thoughts and the cravings come into play, and we just tell ourselves to do it. And same with the suicide rate. We get to that point where we're just like, just do it.
So, I will say this though, and it's literally, I've been doing this for 11 years, and literally I've never met a group or company in my life that aligns morally with me the way Allendale, FWR, BKR does. It's really weird, like how just, and the one thing you guys always say is treatment isn't a one size fits all. And I used to preach this all the time before I was even educated that, you know, a lot of these programs, you know, and obviously I hate the VA, right? But the VA is a great tool, but you have to literally apply yourself. You have to invest into your own medical and mental health stuff. And in the military, and I'm only speaking on the military, but it's crazy because the average person serves less than 5 years.
Sure.
So they've never been in a position where they're the ones giving out authority. They're just used to being told what to do. So when we come home, and the statistics are so high that if you don't get a job and don't start taking care of yourself medically within the first 12 months, you're going to become an addict, you're going to be homeless, and your suicide rate is through the roof. Well, most vets, they don't do anything their first 12 months because they really haven't even processed that they're a civilian technically amongst civilians. Like, you know, go back, they're still riding that wave of I'm the local hero, blah, blah, blah. But we have a lot of underlying mental health issues that just go undiagnosed. And so, you know, mental health and getting better isn't a one size fits all, but you have to take the initiative, or at least find a circle of friends that pushes you a little bit to seek out your own treatment and figure out what works for you and what doesn't. You know, for me, the VA was just telling me to take high blood pressure medicine and tell, you know, walk 5 laps around the block once a day, if that, maybe eat some vegetables. That wasn't working for me because I was still eating my pizza, drinking a half a bottle of bourbon, and not working out. So then, not the VA, but BKR, my dudes was like, hey, why don't you go to the gym? You can't even tie your own shoe. Why, you know, what do you, all this stuff. And so for me, I work out. It's honestly like I actually freak out when I don't get to go to the gym now.
Yeah.
Did you tie your own shoes?
I can tie both my shoes now. I can touch my toes.
That's pretty impressive.
It's pretty great. I'm not gonna lie. It's awesome. I'm wearing a large shirt right now. A sweet, by the way, sweet Allendale shirt.
Mental health awareness. You know, those shirts came in, and it was for mental health awareness.
Yeah.
And the minute I saw that shirt that said mental health awareness on it, I was like, I'm definitely not going to kill myself today because this shirt is so cool.
Well,
and it has the American flag on the back.
I didn't think that when I got this shirt. I was actually,
because I know the minute people see the Stop Suicide hashtag bumper stickers, they're like, I'm not going to do it. Yeah.
No, that doesn't work for me. Just so you know, what worked for me was going to the gym and losing weight and putting good food in my body, not putting alcohol in my body, getting sleep, journaling, meditating.
But I want to point out something else that you did. So you took back over FW22 how long ago?
Well, this is my first full year.
Okay,
I took it about a year and a half ago.
And before that, what were you doing?
I ran my own. Well, we had a really nice roofing company.
Okay. So not that isn't great. Like that's certainly
It was a great salary.
Yeah, for sure.
And then they were forever because it was forever.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Shout out.
But now you took back over this nonprofit that is focused on helping people.
Yep.
And I would imagine that also helped you.
It did. So, I'm a big believer in passion fatigue. And when we first started this nonprofit, we didn't want to be a nonprofit. We just wanted to create an event literally based.
Yeah.
And feel like you were in the military. And the first year we ever did it, we had almost 600 people show up from all over the country. Wow. And that's what we did. We drank and we drank and we drank.
Tell us a little bit about that. That's because it's pretty funny.
Dude,
so you're co-founder.
Yep. So Tyler and I, so Tyler and I, he's my best friend. Known him since like first grade. And he's the one that tricked me into joining the Marine Corps. And son of a gun. He had gotten out about 8 months before I did. I was going through a divorce. I had just re-enlisted to be a drill instructor, but I just didn't like that I had a kid at home and wasn't close. So I decided to, hang up the uniform. Still had that crazy frog voice, which is funny. I'm having lunch with Justin next, and he tried to unfriend me because my frog voice gave him PTSD because everybody doesn't like drill instructors. And I had that voice. I was in great shape. And one day Tyler and I were drinking Jameson and cleaning our guns, which we did every night. And we had both lost people to suicide. Yeah. Me from that I deployed in combat with, and then Tyler, who never deployed, just really crappy chain of command. And so we just said, screw this, dude, let's do something. And so we created this hike. Ended up being 22 miles the first year because Tyler's stupid at math.
It's supposed to be 22 kilometers, right?
Yeah, much shorter. But it was crazy. I think our only sponsor was Showgirl 3. We had a guy dressed as Deadpool thrown up on a cop car.
Yes, that's
we had a bunch of adult dancers.
And you guys didn't bring any water, just alcohol.
Dude, like some of his platoon buddies from Chicago passed out on the concrete at 6:30 a.m. already blackout drunk, broke his nose.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. Like literally, I think I got drunk and sobered up 3 different times that day.
I sweated it out.
But then what was crazy is at the end of the event, there was this guy that looked overweight like I did, but he was wearing his Marine Corps uniform, buttons just ready to burst. And he was going to hang himself. And somehow he saw our flyer on social media. So he came all the way down from Michigan. And literally that was the first time since I honestly had left combat that I felt good. Like I felt, it felt good knowing I saved somebody.
Yeah.
So year 2, we tried to clean it up. We ended up bought literally, not an exaggeration, 400 cases of water. It was in 5 trucks, I think. Dude, less than 1 case of water was used. Everybody's still just packing in the booze. But we cleaned it up big time. I think year 4, we decided we're going to become a nonprofit. And we really did grow at an alarming rate, and we really took over. A lot of nonprofits hated us because we came out of nowhere and we were raising hundreds of thousands of dollars. But I just didn't like the way other organizations ran. They have beautiful messages and social media, but then when you call them at 3 a.m. ready to eat a bullet, they're not available because you didn't call during business hours, and we didn't go through the whole, what's your insurance, what's your family history. Like, no, we just show up and kick in your door and we're like, we're here.
Well, so suicide and addiction, they don't keep business hours?
It's wild, right? It's wild. And
how inconsiderate.
But I ended up getting burned out doing it because anytime I couldn't save somebody, I took that personal.
Yeah.
And again, while I'm trying to be everything for everybody else, I was doing nothing that I was preaching for myself.
Right.
And it was building up. And like I said, at the roofing company, I had a beautiful salary. Kid and I were going to the Bahamas whenever we wanted. We'd fly to New Orleans just to have steak dinners.
Yeah.
But I was also extremely obese. I was drinking probably 6 to 7 bottles of Jameson a week.
Wow.
Which I didn't think was that much. So I was like, what are you talking about? This is normal for me. I was definitely a high function alcoholic. But I loved my company because we were helping vets with roofs and stuff, but it wasn't the same. And when FW22 was on the verge of dissolving, I said, great, I'm good. And then we had to sit down, and I just was thinking about life, and mental health was rising, veterans are struggling, and there really isn't a single veteran nonprofit, arguably in the state, that does what we do. And I liked that. And so I came back, but this time I'm running it like a business, not just a nonprofit, giving you handouts. If you want help, you're going to work for it. We're going to fight with you. We're going to fight for you.
Yep.
but I want it to be more ran like a business. I'd like to have, staff, payroll. One of the greatest things I ever did was partner with you guys, because again, morally, you are what I believe in, and seeing the work that you do with not just veterans, but just people struggling with addiction in general, is no one else does it. And you might not say that, I will, right? It's my opinion, but I've seen what happens when we send people to other recovery centers, and I just don't agree with most of it. To me, it's very, everything's black and white is the way I look at it. As in the Marines, it's either right or it's wrong. There's no in between. And what you do and I'll speak for vets, what you do when you have a vet in your care is the highest quality of care I've ever seen, and that's what they deserve. And the fact that you do that for anybody, not just vets, that's huge to me. So running this like a business, really, with our drug court and veteran court and our state mandated trainings, and our military sexual assault team, and then just what we do with our vets, and then our partners for mental health and addiction, like we really are a one team, one fight, and we're going to take over the world. I'm telling you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think your story about your first hike is a great story. Well,
Wild.
It is, but it goes along with what we're talking about, which is you guys became part of the solution. You didn't want to be part of the problem. So you did it imperfectly first, but we do everything imperfectly, right? But the important thing is you put your feet to the ground and you started walking, you started put one foot in front of the other, and you took action, but you didn't stay there. You didn't say, okay, we did an event, you looked at it because you got involved and you said, okay, how can we get better? And I think that is the important thing for people to understand, being part of the solution as opposed to part of the problem is you're not going to be perfect. There's never going to be a right time to get involved. You're never going to feel like you're ready, but just go ahead and do it. But when you do it, always be thinking about what you can do better and striving towards being perfect. You probably won't get there. You probably never get there, but at least if you're striving towards it, you might get to good, better, great, right? So what do you have to lose by always looking? And that's what I think sets apart FW22, Allendale Treatment, Allendale Behavioral Health, FWR, BKR, all these organizations we work with and we're a part of from others, is we're always looking to own our right? And that's so important to say that we're not perfect. We make plenty of mistakes, but constantly going back to the drawing board. We got this guy on our team. His name's Tim Rapson. He was an Army Ranger, right? And so when we have something that doesn't go how we want it in our treatment center, he will say, let's do an after action report. And
Love
so he
it.
put it together, which is a military thing,
Love
right?
it,
Because when
yeah.
you practice or you do an op, when you're practicing an op or you're doing an operation, you go look and see, what did we do? How well did we do it? What can we do better next time? And what's our corrective action? And so that's what we do with everything. And we're always constantly as a team talking through that. And what happens though, is that trickles down to us as individuals who make up the collective, right? And so that's why you see when we all get together and we start to talk to one another more frequently and spend time around each other, you become who you hang around. So, you start hanging out with us, you started to get in better shape. Zach looks fantastic. He's lost a ton of
Zach
weight.
is crushing it.
I mean, it just happens when you get around people. And why, like people say, why the hell does that matter? Well, because the healthier you are mentally, physically, and spiritually, and that's the thing, is people talk about their physical health, their mental health, and their spiritual health as if you can separate them from one another. You cannot separate them from one another. If you have bad physical health, your spiritual and mental health is not going to be great. If you have bad mental health or bad spiritual, I mean, it all works. It's all working in tandem, right? There's synergy. And when one part of the machine breaks down, the whole machine breaks down, right? It's like you've got different parts of your car. If one part doesn't work, it's not going to go anywhere, right? Not at least not very far, or not safely. Okay. So when we as people,
tell it to my sister.
when we as people invest in ourselves individually, we become a better part of the collective. And so what that looks like, honestly, you said, recovery is different for everybody, and it's not a one size fits all, and that's true. But it's in some ways it's like the military, right? You have different, what do they call MOS, right? Which is like basically your job. So you have specific training, but what do you do before that? You go to basic training. Right. Yeah. And the same thing is true with mental, spiritual, and physical health. There are some core basics that you do have to invest in if you want to be able to move beyond that and do the extra thing. Right. So like whether you go to AA, whether you go to NA, whether you go to Smart Recovery, whether you go to Celebrate Recovery, traditional treatment with IOP or IOP sober living or detox, doesn't matter. If you don't have the basics in line, it's not going to work for you. You're just going to keep running up against the same things over and over again. And let's say maybe you quit the drugs or the alcohol, or you get your mental health under control. It's only temporary because you're going to shift whatever you're struggling with into a different area. If you don't deal with the problem, because that's the thing, is people think the drugs or the alcohol is the problem, or the feeling of depression or the feeling of anxiety is the problem. That's just a symptom of the underlying problem. The underlying problem is in your heart and your head, right? And in your soul and the rest of your body. So that's why we talk so much about being a part of the solution, living the solution. You have to be the solution in order for it to actually work. And then it is contagious, just like being a crappy human is contagious. Like, right, you see all these people. What is one of the things that's really popular in our country right now? It's like this mob mentality. It feels really good to go out with a group of people and get really pissed off and make signs and break shit, right? That's a lot of fun because it fuels you. But then you see other people who get these collectives together and they're like, we're going to go feed the homeless. We're going to go help this old lady cut her grass. Like, that's also contagious. So it comes down to, as an individual, like, what are you going to emit? Like the kids say, what kind of aura do you have, right? People out here aura farming, whatever the hell that means. But it's like, how are you going to put this energy out into the world? And again, it starts with us. And that's why we're so big on, you have to be the solution. And it looks like eating healthy, exercising, finding something spiritually that makes sense to you, that helps you push towards becoming a better person, more in tune with those around you. And then your mental health, which is, again, a lot of your diet. It doesn't necessarily mean your physical diet, like the food you eat. What kind of movies do you watch? How much time do you spend on social media?
Who are you hanging out with?
Who are you hanging out with? What books are you reading? Are you reading books? Like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Are you challenging yourself?
Yeah.
And so that is why, in the second part, we wanted to move into living the solution. It's so important.
Yeah.
Well,
no, I was going to say, so Zach, you struggled with mental health and obviously substance abuse. So I wanted you to just talk about your personal story, some of the things that you did to improve on yourself and your life, your family, and all that after you got sober.
Yeah.
Because you didn't just get sober and everything was great, like we've been saying.
And that's the thing. When I did get sober, I thought all of my problems were going to be magically erased. I wasn't going to be depressed anymore. I wasn't.
Now you got problems you actually have to deal with.
Right. And that's the thing. Like, through my recovery, I found that, like, I do suffer from depression. And, when I was in my active addiction, I was using because I was depressed, and I was depressed because I was using. So that guilt of just going back and forth, like, that led me down a deeper hole than what I ever was. But then I take the substance away. That was my crutch. That was my solution to all of my problems. Well, now I have a bigger problem because I don't have that solution anymore. So for me, like, it was a lot of family time, getting back in with my family that I had crushed a relationship with. And you know what? That's easier said than done because we burn a lot of bridges. But I worked hard, and my family saw that I was doing something different, something that I had never done. I wasn't hanging around the same people. And I was actually taking action. When they saw me taking action and continued that action, that's when they were willing to give me a chance. That's when they were willing to talk to me, allow me to come back home. They were willing to see my family, my children, because I had broken a lot of stuff. But also, I went to therapy. I went to groups. I did treatment. Some of it was forced, but gosh dang it, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. And when I say forced, I mean like through the court systems and things like that. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me. But even then, like, once I was done with the courts and, everything was said and done, I found that through my recovery, I was starting to find joy, which was something that I hadn't felt in a very long time. And I was like, what can I do with myself? What can I do? And for me, that was going back into the treatment world. I didn't know how that was going to look. And then I landed the position at Fort Wayne Recovery, and it just started to grow. But again, I couldn't use that as my recovery. That doing this, we'll get burnt out. I mean, we all feel it. You'll get burnt out. So for me, like today, I still continue my recovery through AA and NA. But also, I have the opportunity to go speak with somebody. I have friends that are willing to talk to me. And that's what I was saying, in the last episode is like, you need to have a group of people. Like, it can't just be Jared that I'm always flushing my stuff down on. And because A, that's not fair to him. B, that's not his role in my life. And I needed more. So also, people think like, oh, my family's going to keep me sober. That never kept me sober, and that never kept me happy. And that's just because of my mind, not saying that they're bad or they add more stress to my life. That's just me. That's just in my mind.
Well, it was a you problem, not a them problem.
Correct.
Right? And that's putting the burden on them and saying, well, you're going to keep me sober. It's like, but that's not, I'm not the one getting you high.
Well, and I'm a classic isolator. So if I, if I'm getting in my feelings and that's the thing, I don't even know when I'm feeling depressed. I don't know. But I can tell like there is something wrong. My mood is getting worse. My attitude's getting worse. My anger is getting worse. And that's when my wife will step in and say, hey, how are you feeling? And she'll ask me that simple question. We haven't checked in a while. Are you okay? But that also allows me to think, where am I at right now? But today, like, even though I still use those things, like I need to find my life is revolved around recovery, around substance abuse, mental health. So for me, I need to find like healthy things that have nothing to do with recovery, have nothing to do with my family. So, I'm an avid duck hunter and I love football. So I'll bury myself into podcasts and fantasy football and
Like bowling.
Yeah, and bowling. I like bowling a lot. But it's actually doing those things.
Yeah. Because
when you're not doing them, like you can say you love it and like that makes you happy all the time. But if you're not doing it, it's pointless. So those are things like, I just started playing video games not too long ago, but that was also because all of my best friends from, since first grade, they do that as well. So I can now connect with them and stay in touch with them. Like that helps me mentally.
But I'm sure you've learned how to moderate those things too,
Absolutely.
Which is
His wife probably helps him moderate the video games.
Well,
listen,
my kids do.
listen, but that's a whole nother topic for another day. But yes, I mean, that's why it's important to have people around you who will hold you accountable, whether it's your wife or whoever. And I don't mean necessarily like, we talked about keeping you sober is not their job, but once you move beyond that point, having a family gives you balance.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a beautiful thing for you. And I think we love watching you do it, and you do a great job of it.
Thank you. It's never easy. Like this, none of this is easy. But my first solution was actually asking for help. Every time I go to an AA meeting and I get another chip for a year, it's, how'd you do it? Well, my answer will always be the same. I finally asked for help. And that's the biggest thing that I wanted to push in this episode was like, reach out. I don't care how many times it takes. Reach out to someone. If that somebody can't help you, reach out to another. In today's day and age, there are so many people that are willing. There's so many organizations that are willing to help. You just have to find the right one. What Jared was saying in the last episode was, you call all these places and nobody can help you. They'll just say, hey, have a nice day. That's what happened to me when I was trying to find treatment the first time. It was, I think I called 6 places and everyone said, oh, sorry, I can't help you, and hung up the phone on me. And that gave me
That's a defeating feeling, dude.
And it gave me the excuse to say, look, guys, I tried.
Yeah.
This just isn't, God's plan isn't in line for me right now. So it's keep using, keep suffering.
Right.
So that's where I wanted to put that out, was like, just keep reaching out. And if you reach out to BKR or FW22, we will always find you something. And, keep leading you to the next portion of it. I don't care if somebody has insurance, no insurance, Medicaid, whatever they're looking for. If they need treatment or if they need just a therapist to talk to,
right,
we'll help them, guide them to that next step.
Yeah.
And our team does a great job of that.
Yeah. And I mean, you can always too reach out to Remedy Live, right? 494949 for their text to chat line. And they have Soul Medics available 24/7. And all the organizations mentioned, whether it's BKR, Allendale Treatment, ABH, FWR, FW22, Remedy Live. We don't care who you are, where you come from, what kind of insurance you have, or what kind of financial standing you have, whether you're gay, straight, have pink, blue, red hair, you're black, white, Christian, Jewish, Muslim. We don't care. We want to help you as a human being and treat you with the human dignity that you deserve. And we want you to live a happy and healthy and fulfilled life and be productive member of our society. So that's
and we may have to tell you some hard things to hear.
absolutely.
Especially families. If you call me and you're saying like, well, my 22-year-old son, he still lives at home. He has no job. He's getting high every day. He disrespects me. He talks bad to me. I'm going to tell somebody like, hey, you need to kick them out.
Yeah.
Or you need to hold boundaries of if you're not going to cross this line, and if you do, this is your consequence. And when they say, well, I can't do that. Okay, well, first of all, you're going to love them to death. And then second, why would they ever stop? If somebody can continue to do all of these things and the only thing that they're going to get from mom and dad is a tongue lashing, or, from their wife, is be another argument, which gives them an excuse to get out of the house, why would somebody ever stop? And those are the questions that we need to ask each other. So I will say those things to him, but I'm not saying it in a mean, directive way. It's like, hey, let's figure this portion out. And that's where the biggest part of this comes from, is taking the suggestion. When you're reaching out to somebody, take that suggestion. If Jared tells you to go do something, you better do it. Because if not, you can't come back to him and say, well, look, guys, I tried.
Yeah.
Did you?
We call that being an asshole,
Yeah.
which means you just ask people's opinion, you listen, and then you don't do anything they say. So don't be an asshole.
Well, and I'll say this real quickly too, but I will promise this. I can actually confidently say, if anybody reaches out to FW22 or BKR or FWR or Allendale, I promise you, because we truly believe in our one team, one fight mantra, we will fight for you. We will not be someone that just hangs up because it's 2 a.m. or you don't qualify for insurance. And we will work tirelessly for you, because that's what we do for humanity.
Yeah.
We fight for them and we love them. So
You have options.
yes.
We'll help you find other options. And if you want someone to be mean with you, we'll put you on the phone with Tommy.
Yeah. Yeah.
He'll tell you the hard truth.
Yes.
Yeah. If you're sitting on the toilet looking at your man boobs, just call Tommy. He'll get rid of them real quick.
I will. But I want to also say, like, everything you just said is true, Jared, but it also goes back to what Nate and Zach were just talking about. If you're asking us over and over and over and over and over and over and over again for help and for solutions, but you're refusing to put in any effort at all, at a certain point, like, I'm going to tell you, like, look, man, when you're actually ready, like, to take some action, like, then you can call me. But until then, like, I'm not your therapist.
Yep.
That's not my role that I'm going to play in your life. Go get a therapist if you want somebody to just go bitch and complain to every day. I'm going to give you solutions, and it's your job to act on them.
And especially when we lead you right to them. I mean, we'll take
we
care
give you
of
everything that you need. Like, make a phone call, get in this car and go to this place, whatever it is. We'll give you every option that's available to you and make it as easy as we can. But at the end of the day, like, you do have to have some skin in the game.
Yeah,
Well, and that's why I wear this bracelet that Tommy gave me. Not that, so it says nobody cares, work harder. But the way I take that is, if I'm not going to fight for myself, why should Tommy?
Right.
Right. And so it doesn't matter what my excuse is, how long my day was, I'm going to put in the work.
Yeah.
Because,
One thing that Nate always says that I love is, like, we will absolutely meet people where they're at, but we're not going to leave you there.
yeah, he just said it the other day. I was thinking I was doing push-ups in my living room, saluting the flag. He had me so fired up when he said that.
I mean, listen, you can lead a horse to water, but they have to drink it, and in my case, that was true.
All right. I think that's a good ending spot.
I agree.
All right, guys. Well, once again, Zach, Jared, thank you for joining us, and thank you guys for watching. We will see you next time.